Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
Mr. Baxter, would you handle this introduction for me, please?
It'll be my pleasure, Mike. And now, a report on the news of Hollywood from our entertainment correspondent, Sandy Kenyon. Sandy.
Thanks, Ted. After 2 decades of growth and prosperity during the 1960s and 70s, the record business has slowed down. For the record industry, the joyful refrains of expansion have given way to the blues of declining sales. A business many once called recession-proof has been hit by a depression. The figures from the Recording Industry Association of America tell the story. In 1979, for instance, 683 million records, cassettes, and 8-track tapes were sold. In 1980, though, sales were down 5%. By 1981, down 13% from 2 years before. The slide hasn't stopped. For the first quarter of this year, sales were down as much as 8% more. Faced with such a decline, record companies have drastically cut their staff. Trade paper headlines reflect just how bad times are, and they've also affected newer artists, who now find it tougher than ever to get a record contract. That's because the cost of materials and equipment involved in making a record has soared. Members of the top rhythm and blues group Lakeside told us record companies are reluctant to assume the costs of recording an unknown group.
They don't want to spend out that type of money and not know that they're going to be able to get it back. You know, they're usually basically going with the already established acts, and it's kind of unfortunate for those groups and people who are trying to break into the business now.
Even for an established act, a record contract can be tough to come by, especially if sales for that artist have fallen off. Producer Val Garay.
It's going to be a lot more difficult for people to get deals, to be able to do what they want to do, especially artists that are more artistically oriented than commercially oriented.
Garay has a Grammy Award and a wall of gold records, testifying to his track record as a commercial producer. But he's upset that artists trying to break new ground find it hard to get a record contract. Nevertheless, he believes very talented musicians still get their chance. On the other hand, some industry observers believe the recent cutbacks have helped weed out mediocre artists. And the head of the Black Music Association, Dick Griffey, believes the austerity measures have also put a stop to some industry abuses of the recent past.
We were spending frivolously, that we did have duplications of jobs and responsibilities. And now it really has come down to the fact that it's the survival of the fittest, that only the strong will survive. I think that it has now come down to you have to give the people what they want, and you have to cut out the nonsense, the frivolous wasting, the parties.
In fact, there are those who blame the record companies themselves for at least part of their current problems. Industry observers like KLOS radio program director Tom Hadges say the salaries paid to the superstars are just too high.
Well, they seem to be getting bigger all the time, especially with people flipping back and forth from label to label. When Paul Simon went to Warner Brothers or when Paul McCartney went to Columbia, tremendous amounts of money were spent. Kenny Rogers going to go to RCA.
Despite past extravagance by some record companies, many of their current problems are not of their own making. Americans are taping albums at home without paying for them, and the record industry says that's costing companies $1 billion a year in lost revenues. I'll have more on that during Mike's next show. The Los Angeles grand jury today continued its investigation into the death last March of comedian John Belushi. Today's star witness was fellow comedian Robin Williams, who reportedly visited Belushi just hours before his death. Williams' attorney said his client appeared before the grand jury to, quote, provide whatever evidence he has. Williams' actual testimony took place behind closed doors, so no word yet on what light he might have shed on the case. Mike?
Thank you, Sandy, and we'll be right back.
Well done.
We'll be right back. Was that well done?
Well
Thank you,
done.
Ted. We'll be right back after these messages.